This is an awesome site and an awesome experience. And I mean that quite literally. I am filled with awe. And Mayor Coletti, thank you. Thank you for that. But don't expect me to sing at your State of the City, because it will chase your audience right out of the room. Let me begin just a little bit formally here. Honored members of the City Council, City Department directors in attendance today, city employees who are here, members of the Greater Idaho Falls Association of Realtors, and perhaps most importantly, the esteemed members of our business community and citizens of Idaho Falls. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here. Last year was the inaugural event for this State of the City event, it was the inaugural year for the State of the City event being held outside of a City Council meeting. We changed the time, we changed the venue, and instead of just wedged in there between City Council business items on a Thursday night, we brought it out into the lunch hour prime time here, and it was a success last year, and so we felt like we had to do it again, and this year was even more successful, and so here we are. And we have a record number of Idaho Falls interested attendees, and I think we can safely conclude that this new tradition is official, it's launched. And so to Guy Farr leadership, I say thank you. Thank you for taking a chance on hosting something like this, and thank you for making this annual report on the state of our great city into a larger event, and for drawing out even greater numbers of residents, business professionals, and community leaders. As many of you know, and as we've already talked about, this event is a fundraiser for a program that's very dear to me. The Mayor's Scholarship Fund was something I helped to co-found back in 2006. And back then, we have worked a long time to build this into a program it's unique in that it supports community youth in grades 8 through 12, not just seniors. And that the dollar amount of the Mayor's Scholarship Fund, or we call it MSF, of the MSF awards is pretty small when compared with the actual cost of attending higher education. But the goal is not just to pay for schooling, like you maybe think of most scholarships. Our goal it's simpler. We are striving to place promising young people, the ones that the system doesn't regularly reward with the AP this or the straight A that kind of an experience from high school, but the kids who maybe are quite capable of success in higher education, or on the path to getting some kind of post-secondary education, but that they maybe aren't the superstars, the rock stars. We're looking for kids who are capable, and so our program is a little bit unique, but we want to place them on the path to higher education. And our logo, if you ever get a chance to see it, shows a lovely little path going through the state of Idaho, the path to higher education. And we want to get them on the path. And we have, research tells us that if you help an 8th grader or 9th grader identify themselves as someone that the community has also told them they're special, they're capable, and they've got a bright future, they stay on the path. And we are agnostic about whether that path takes them to a PhD or a certificate in welding or anything in between or all around. We want our recipients to be local kids who end up having the life where they have become the brightest and most successful version of themselves. That's all we want. We want them to be the most successful version of themselves. So thank you for paying for your lunch today. I know it wasn't cheap, the corporate tables. Thank you. That's a lot of dollars that are going to be put to a really good use, which is helping young people believe in themselves early. And that makes a difference. So a little emotional, but it's important work, so thank you. So let me jump in a little bit here. In Idaho Falls, we are very fortunate in that we have so many cross-cutting economic forces that no matter what's happened, whether it was the Great Recession, the pandemic, the weird recovery, if you want to call it that we've had since then, we have not been utterly wiped out by any of those things. In the past 15 years that I've been paying a lot of attention, I've been elected for the past 10, I will say that we are fortunate with the way that our local economy works. Let me just highlight a few things. Tourism. The tourism element has proven very strong for us. When the national or international economy is good, we see visitors on tour buses from other countries coming to Idaho Falls or stopping through as they, going through Idaho Falls as they go on to some of the national parks. When the economy is weaker, our tourists drive the minivans and they come from all over the West to come and have an experience here. But they're still having a tourism experience that we get to support. I wanted to mention federal contracting. The federal government contracts in our midst have been very safe for Idaho Falls, and this may be because right now we're in a period of expansion. Advanced nuclear is a growth industry. INL's cybersecurity mission is fundamental and will probably never not be relevant or important to support. Our association with the nuclear Navy is a source of incredible pride, and we should celebrate and understand that maybe a little better than we do. The environmental cleanup work at the site offers an opportunity for Idaho to showcase the expertise of our local workforce and an opportunity also to exercise leadership as we show the other sites across the country what cleanup can look like and what closure of those environmental management sites look like. Unemployment may be something that when you think of the economy that you worry about a little bit, but for my entire time in Idaho, entire time in office, we've experienced conditions, with the exception of that blip of the pandemic, those few months there, we have experienced underemployment. And this is not altogether great. That number needs to be at a healthy level, which they say is between 3 and 5 somewhere. We tend to be under the 3 right now. I think we're a little above it, but for the most part, you want your employers to be able to have choice when hiring. But the silver lining to being an underemployment kind of place is that we have developed some pretty strong muscles when it comes to appreciating the need for workforce development and for identifying smart talent pipelines for young people. And we see great cooperation between the schools, the K-12 school experience and the CEI experience, in addition to then moving on to an ISU. So for the most part, I'm only picking a smattering of things to talk about economically, but our community's economic future is strong and bright if we manage it with clear eyes and with intelligent leadership that is looking down the road a little bit. And we always have to be scanning the horizon. And I have to tell you how thankful I am that CEI is a great partner in this, because CEI's leaders don't just focus on bringing people in and teaching them and giving them good experience and some kind of a certificate or a degree on their way out. They also help us to scan the horizon and pay attention to trends and pay attention to what we need to be looking at. And they have vision when it comes to that. And I'm very grateful, Dr. Amon, and President Amon, and Ms. Barber, and all of you for that leadership and vision. Well, what I really am intending to do is share with you the current state of affairs in Idaho Falls. In addition to an elected mayor and 6 elected city council members, our city has 11 departments, and each of those departments has multiple divisions within it, each of which has multiple professionals and professional functions. Last year, Idaho Falls was once again named America's best performing small city by or I guess it was best performing small city in America, anyway, by the Milken Institute. And this is the second time in 3 years that we've gotten that designation. The reason why I think we qualify for that label is, well, it's in large part has to do with the strong leadership exercised by our 11 department directors. Directors, I know that you might still be working on that dessert, but would you be so kind as to stand so everyone can see whose work we're going to be showcasing today? Thank you. Appreciate that. We also have some council members here today as well. Please give a wave. I know that they're sprinkled around the room. We have some directors who aren't here. I know our fire chief is dealing with union negotiations for the fire department. Our library director is dividing his time in Boise right now between testimony on the library bill that's been introduced, as well as I guess he has a daughter there he's also visiting. But since we last met, 3 departments have new leadership. Actually 4. And much like how the U.S. Senate must approve a president's nominations to federal courts, the Idaho Falls City Council is tasked with giving their consent to the director appointments that I make. We've had several in this past year. So the first one is Director Wade Sanner. Wade, give a wave. He came in to Community Development Services. Michael Kirkham, I didn't see Mike here. Mike has been named, recently was named our city attorney in November. Also Darren Jones, and I don't see Darren here today. I wanted everybody to meet him, darn it. But he is our new Human Resources Director. And then finally, Ian Turner has been appointed, and the council has given consent to be our new Airport Director. But Ian is not here. Today's his last day on his other job, former job. He will officially join us on February 1st. But since this past October, we've been very privileged to have Ron Elliott serving as the Airport's interim director. And Ron has some serious turnaround skills, and we have benefited from his unique experience in the industry. So thank you. So before I begin going into some details here, our city PIO, Eric Grossarth, has prepared a brief visual introduction to some of the many and varied city activities and operations. And so Eric, can we push the play button and direct your attention to a screen? I should note that Councilmember Tom Halley just retired from 20 years of service. His 5 terms on the City Council are just shy of a record that was set by Councilmember Mel Erickson. But in second place, there are two council members who've achieved that 20-year mark, and that would be Councilor Tom Halley and Councilor Ida Hardcastle. And we just retired Tom last week, and in his place, newly elected Councilmember Kirk Larson has joined the Idaho Falls City Council, and we feel very fortunate. Kirk is here today, so thank you. All right, so now I'm just going to throw at you several things that are maybe useful to be aware of and know about in terms of successes and good things that have happened in our community this past year. The first thing I'll talk about on the transportation side is GIFT, G-I-F-T, stands for Greater Idaho Falls Transit. And GIFT continues to be one of Idaho Falls' most interesting success stories since restarting transit service in the form of on-demand transit. In the summer of 2022, over 145,000 rides have been given. As of mid-December, just 4 weeks ago, there were 11,000 user accounts as part of GIFT in Idaho Falls, and that represents approximately 16% of our population. That may not seem like a lot to you, but in fact, 68%, or just over 2/3 of those rides, have been given in support of seniors and disabled riders. Going forward, as more and more citizens discover GIFT, that percentage will be diluted, right? It will trend downward, and will not just see a domination by seniors and disabled riders. But none of us should lose sight of the fact that GIFT's core ridership comprises those who often have no other affordable options for getting to and from medical appointments, shopping, and other necessary services. Much of the funding for GIFT comes in the form of federal sources, but those typically require matching dollars. So if you happen to operate a business or a service that benefits from GIFT riders or ridership, consider making a donation or doing some of your advertising with GIFT, because you know what? You'll be doing more than just helping your own bottom line when you do that. The airport, we saw some images there from IDA. We continue to see a growing number of passengers coming in and going through our airport. Accommodating the increased number of passengers requires another phased expansion of our terminal building. Now, some of you who fly a lot might be saying, again, more construction? This first phase of the next round will begin soon. But as passengers, you may not notice much. But the people who are tasked with getting our bags from the ticket counters to the aircraft are going to welcome the space and the modern equipment that will be part of this first phase, because it'll make their job safer and more efficient. Future phases will be announced as we obtain the FAA funding for them. We're also studying at the airport right now the air traffic control tower. We're in the middle of a site relocation study. And the goal of that is to ensure that the placement of our air traffic control tower allows for the most effective siting to give us monitoring and maximum safety on the airfield. Airport leadership is also in the midst of developing a master plan that will identify our 5, 10, and 20-year plans. It comes as no surprise that growth and expansion are major themes in our plan, and we're really growing fast. Currently, we're hitting FAA commercial and cargo growth targets that our last 5-year plan identified for the 2040s. So we have just grown exponentially, just crazy growth. And so and we have to accommodate it. But these plans and improvements are much more than just airport construction projects that we're managing. Each plan and each improvement makes IDA more attractive, not just to the passengers, but also to new airlines. And let's not forget that each new airline that we bring in, or route that we bring in, it increases competition. And what does that do? Drives fares downward. In the past 10 years, we've seen IDA's fares go down and passenger convenience go up. It used to be standard for us to go to Salt Lake to get a decent fare, and we just factored that trip in, whether it was leaving at 4 in the morning to get there or splurging on a cheap night in a hotel or something. And now that gas, that time, those dollars are better off put into the cost of your ticket, and you'll end up saving money if you fly out of IDA. And that's what competition does. So we are excited to see this growth because we all benefit from it. In the fall, we also received a $950,000 air service development grant from the FAA to develop a route to the Los Angeles area. So in the coming months, we'll be working to establish that route. So stay tuned on that one, more to come. All of this activity is a tall order for our new airport director, Ian Turner, who will be starting soon, but we believe he's more than up to that task. And with your support and understanding, it'll be even better. Other infrastructure that we have in the city, also related to transportation. I'll tell you a rough count, identified 26 public works projects last year in 2023. This includes the major intersection widening and reconstruction at 17th and Woodruff. I hope you've experienced how nice it is to drive through there. Improved traffic flow is the goal. Public Works also sponsored some other significant safety improvements on our roadways. 17th and Rolandette, hit in 25th, and I know I'm not supposed to say hit, I'm supposed to say 25th East. So 25th East and 25th whatever, right, but there. Also, hit in Sunnyside, or 25th East and Sunnyside, and then also Sunnyside and Woodruff. We've also put in a number of other safety improvements for pedestrians this past year. That would include new sidewalk in Highland Park, multi-use pathways along South Boulevard and Toffus Park, along the city ball fields adjacent to Rolandette, and a pathway was also constructed south of Sunnyside along the Idaho Canal. And these pathways don't just serve pedestrians, they also add to our bike connectivity. Biking can then be more enjoyable, and you can get to more places more safely. And so as we build out the biking network, we create higher quality of life in our community. I'm also pleased to share that both Public Works and our Parks and Recreation departments, both of those departments collaborated to construct accessible restrooms at the all-access playground at Toffus Park. Who would have thought that when we put in the all-access playground that we forgot the accessible bathrooms? And so for a couple of years, they've had an accessible porta potty. We all know that experience, no matter how wide the door is still not going to be a great one for the young, for the people who use that playground. And so I'm very pleased that is going in, and the construction is still happening, but it should be there and ready to go when the weather warms up. Let's talk for a minute about Idaho Falls Fiber. By the end of 2023, the city's Fiber to the Home initiative achieved approximately 95% coverage in Idaho Falls. This means that nearly all Idaho Falls residents now have access to speeds of up to 1 gigabyte on what's now Idaho's largest open access fiber network. Only small parts of some neighborhoods remain to be fully connected. Currently, over 650 miles of fiber optic cable serve 7,000 residents. But we have capacity to serve all of our residents. The project represents, at this point, a $21,414,998 direct investment in Idaho Falls, and it will serve our citizens for decades to come. As you know, fiber connectivity today is to the 21st century what the telegraph was to the 1800s and the telephone was to the 1900s. And Idaho Falls citizens have this access for a very modest dollar amount. $25 a month is an infrastructure fee that is tacked on to your utility bill. And then there's the service fee that's associated with the services you order from one of the 6 private providers that we work with. They offer the most basic data plan option all the way to a super deluxe, I think it's 10 gigabyte or something, a package. My current $37 a month monthly service fee, when combined with the $25 for the infrastructure fee, results in savings of about $30 a month over what I had been paying before a couple of years ago. And for me, saving $360 a year is very significant for my budget, and I have better service. There's not that buffering circle that keeps happening. So if you know someone who isn't connected to Idaho Falls Fiber, who lives in Idaho Falls, encourage them to investigate it. Most people say switching providers is just a big hassle. I couldn't agree more. It is no fun to try to make the phone call, set up the appointment, and do that. But maybe if you just suggest to your friends that they start by comparing costs. And at some point, money beats hassle. At least it does for me. So there's that. I feel silly not mentioning that Ammon also has a very robust fiber program. And people who live in our little neck of the woods in Idaho have it great compared to what's happening in other parts of our state where there's not that public-private partnership that brings affordable fiber rates to homeowners and business owners. So we've got a good, sweet deal here. I'll talk for a second about power, infrastructure. Some of you may have noticed that Idaho Falls Power recently undergrounded the H power pole infrastructure in a downtown alleyway. This project removed old weathered wood poles that were in an H configuration and kind of an eyesore. They removed the overhead transformers and conductors and other things that completely obstructed the view. And they buried those, the new service lines and equipment. And I will say that these kinds of projects, the ones that underground our infrastructure, are very difficult to tackle, particularly in our downtown area because of the location in a narrow alley, the nature of the businesses that we serve there. They can't be without power. But we also have unknown underground obstacles. When we start digging in a 150-year-old plus downtown area, we're going to find things that aren't on the map. And so those projects are a little bit tricky. So anyway, these are some of the reasons why moving power infrastructure underground can be expensive work, but it still makes sense in the downtown area. The upgrades ensure code compliance. They increase safety. You don't have anybody tempted to climb those poles. They increase functionality, reliability of this power service, and they improve our grid security. The first project that we did came in at around $466,000. Fortunately, we received a state grant for $375 of those dollars, which brought the cost down to about $91,000. 2 more alleyways remain, and Idaho Falls Power is applying for additional grants in an ongoing effort to be able to pay for those undergrounding projects and make our alleyways safer. Beyond what you can see and what you experience every year, Idaho Falls Power invests in other upgrades and that keep the city's power reliable. Our power utility has 46 feeder lines, 12 power substations, 16 fiber huts, and 525.5 miles of power lines to maintain and manage. These upgrades are direct investments in our city that we can expect to last 50 to 60 years when we do them well and when we manage them properly. We don't have outages that are based on crappy equipment or poor maintenance. We don't, and it's because our Idaho Falls Power does a good job in that area. Sorry, I used the C word, crappy. That's not elegant, sorry. Anyway, delivering this level of service, be it for electric power, fiber optic connectivity, public transit, air service, sanitation, clean water, the underground pipes and wastewater treatment that's needed, our safe sidewalks and roadways. Providing all of this is no small thing, and doing it well with an eye toward achieving high quality, maximum safety, and cost savings is a significant professional endeavor. And yet, Idaho Falls professionals in Public Works and Idaho Falls Power at the airport, etc., they do that for our residents every single day. Let's talk about something else that happens every single day. No vacations, no time off, not ever, 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 and that would be public safety. Law enforcement. We have a new law enforcement building. First time that we'll ever have a dedicated building for our police department in the entire life of our city. As we speak, final work is being done on the city's first all-inclusive standalone police facility. We anticipate hosting a ribbon cutting this spring, maybe the end of March, somewhere around in there, we'll see. It'll be announced, and we welcome all of you to come. It will take quite some time for department personnel to move all operations into this state-of-the-art facility. We cannot allow any public safety operations to be down at all, and so every aspect of the move requires its own logistics plan, where we unplug in one location and plug in another, and so that's why I can't provide exact details on the move. It's challenging our IT staff as well as others who are tasked with making that building, getting it ready to go. But the officers are excited, certainly, and more importantly, the public is going to be well served by the new facility. Our capacity and ability to do good research and good detective research, detective work, whatever we call it, as well. We'll also see more collaboration amongst officers, and that is good. That's good. Switch to the fire department for a minute, talking about training. Our fire department continues to work on achieving excellence in fire service. That is a point of pride for every firefighter in the country. In the summer months, our firefighters routinely support firefighting efforts across the state and sometimes across the country. When we send local firefighters out on these kinds of assignments, the city pays the firefighters, and then we're reimbursed for their time, plus a fee for any equipment that they might use by whatever agency we're assisting. The result is increased safety across the region and incredible on-the-job training opportunities for Idaho Falls Fire Service personnel. It's a win-win. Yet, this invaluable on-the-job training is not enough. Modern firefighters need far more skills than the ones they learn while fighting wildland fires in other places. Sending them away for extensive fire and EMS training can be very costly. This is why the department is working to create more local training opportunities. This is not inexpensive, and we're still assessing the financial impact of developing training closer to home, so more to come on that. The finances are tricky on that one. We can move on to talking about a few quality of life kinds of things. Let me talk first about Heritage Park. There were a few pictures in the slide, or in the, what do we call that? Our media presentation from Heritage Park. This past summer, Parks and Rec and the Rotary Club, along with significant resident donors, Woody and Stafford Smith, and the neighbor to the park, Snake River Landing, cut the ribbon that opened Heritage Park to the public. That effort was a significant community collaboration, and all of the partners are appreciated and should be proud. We first broke ground on that space in 2018, and that 5 years between summer of 2018 and summer of 2023 might seem like a long time just to develop an outdoor park. But significant work was required to raise funds, design the park, prepare the land, remove and repair the aging power poles, shore up the river, design parking, draft access agreements, and so on. The power poles themselves took a lot of time because you have to schedule those things. But anyway, Heritage Park is unique. It has no playground, no toys, no concessions, no sports venues, ball fields of any kind, no recreation equipment is located there. Heritage Park's purpose is simply to provide a venue for residents to enjoy the outdoor space. The walking trails, the sound of birds and water splashing on the river, the blue of the sky. It's all there to be appreciated at Heritage Park. And if you've not spent any time there, please make some time this summer, even if it's just getting the kids and the stroller or whatever and walking along the pathway. There were also pictures in the slides on Funland at the Zoo. This past August, we cut a ribbon and celebrated the return of Funland at the Zoo, the historic carousel, the octopus, and the Eli wheel, which is a different name for a Ferris wheel, 2 different people, 2 different wheels. Anyway, these are classic elements of the original park. They'll again be ready for 2024 Summer Fun this coming summer. Funland is that wholesome place for kids of all ages to make memories. And when you go, you'll note that there is still more work to be done. But the good news is that we'll be able to enjoy Funland as additional amenities and improvements are added. The park will be open. Renovating the park has not been easy or inexpensive, but having the experience once again in our community will be worth it. Remember being 5 or 6 or 7 and thinking that was the coolest thing ever to go ride a ride. That's a spirit of joy. It brings a spirit of joy to our community, and people take those memories and they associate them with living here. That's good. It builds community spirit by having these kinds of wholesome opportunities. So if Funland is your thing, feel free to donate to that. Snow sports at Ryder Park. If you don't want to drive all the way to Kelly Canyon or somewhere else, another public-private cooperation or cooperative effort allowed the city's Parks and Rec Department and Gateway Parks at Kelly Canyon to bring enough snow and manufacture enough snow to build a giant snow hill for tubing, skiing, and snowboarding. If you haven't enjoyed it, hopefully you'll appreciate that. A light parade last month, the newest Idaho Falls parade, debuted with 300 brilliantly lit and creatively bedecked or decorated UTVs. The UTV is different from an ATV. I don't understand why you call it a utility terrain. All terrain made sense. Utility terrain doesn't make sense. But anyway, UTVs winding their way. They wound their way through town and all along the river. And this was, again, made possible through creative programming and collaboration with generous members of the community. The Frontier Center. Maybe you've noticed the picture in the slides as well, but you've probably noticed that the former Civic Center for the Performing Arts, which was originally the city's Civic Auditorium, has now been renamed the Frontier Center. And that's because a very generous donation from Frontier Credit Union has been key to the fundraising progress for the Phase 2 renovations to Idaho Falls' premier gathering place. The phases, we're working on Phase 2. Phase 1 was the inside of the house, and maybe some of you will remember the orange and green paint, and now it's a very dignified plum with new seats. All of that was Phase 1. Phase 2 is the front of the house, so to speak. It's going to remodel and expand the foyer, going to bring us some ADA accessible restrooms and an elevator to the building. If any of you have been to that facility and seen somebody who struggles with mobility have to negotiate the stairs, it kind of breaks your heart. And good news, right? Help is on the way. The only way to make this happen any sooner would be for everybody here to write a check to the Idaho Falls Civic Foundation. We only need to raise $1.8 million more out of the $7.3 million goal that we had 13 months ago. In 13 months, we have raised over that $5 million. And so I'm not doing the math on that, but anyway, hats off to the foundation in 13 months for raising as much as they have. And when I say only 1.8, we feel like it is only 1.8 because we've raised so much in just 13 months. So yay, the Civic is only going to get better, or the Frontier Center is only going to get better. We got to help each other train our mouths, otherwise we fail to be grateful to Frontier Credit Union. All right, since the pandemic, we have experienced a near revolution in how our citizens expect to engage with their communities. Gone are the days when a single ad in the newspaper was sufficient for notifying the public about a community meeting or a hearing or some other event. We know that's not enough anymore. But then the question becomes, what is enough? The rules for interacting with the public change often and quickly. The last time I checked, the city had well over 20 social media pages. We maintain close ties with print, television, radio, and online media outlets, and those are terrific partners for informing our citizens. Sometimes we even go so far as to notify residents by placing signs on the doorknob of their home. The range of how we interact with the public is really vast. And to ensure that we're doing our best when communicating what's happening in the city, Idaho Falls took a small part of the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars that we received, and we developed an interactive public outreach program. Public outreach program, the acronym is POP. We call it the POP tool. The tool helps city employees who are working on any particular project identify and consider the range of communication options for each new activity we undertake. The primary goal of having the POP tool is not to underestimate public sentiment, which could result in underinforming our citizens about something that's happening. Underinforming is something we don't want to do. We'd rather citizens get tired of hearing from the city and never be able to say, I never knew about that. So with that said, I want you to know we're working on it. We're trying hard to communicate everything, and that's part of being fully transparent. But I also feel compelled to assert to you that citizenship was never meant to be a passive experience. Successful communication is two-way. Just as the city has to work to communicate effectively, individuals also must work at being effective citizens. Effective citizenship carries with it the potential to make a difference. That's actually the title I've given to these remarks today, making a difference. Do you want to make a difference? Here are a few suggestions for how you can be a more effective citizen. One is to sign up for meeting alerts and meeting notifications. You'll find out when we're plowing somewhere, or when the city council is going to meet, or whatever. Check the city's website and follow our social media pages. Follow a reputable news source, not an unreputable news source. Have, and help the people around you to make sure that they get their news from appropriate, professional, filtered sources. On the website, you'll find an application for service on city boards, committees, and commissions. Just fill that out and email it to my office, and we'll reach out when we have an opening that matches your interests and skills. Watch a city council meeting. We meet several times a month, and all regular meetings for 2024 are already posted, the time and the location, on the city's website. Our budget calendar will be posted soon, and that will include meetings as well. And for those who can't attend a meeting in person, the Monday afternoon work sessions and our regular Thursday night meetings and some of our key budget meetings are live streamed on our website. When topics that interest you are going to be discussed at a meeting, reach out to your elected officials so they can be aware of all of your perspectives before they vote, not after, when you're mad. Right? Finally, know that city officials are always available to speak with citizens who wish to share comments, concerns, or suggestions. And today, if you have a city official at your table and you've got a question, ask it before you leave. They'll stick around and make sure that, that they're clear and help you with whatever you're trying to communicate. I want you to know that active citizens make a difference, even when they do nothing but show up and listen, or maybe ask a few questions. Social science has taught us that observation, the observation effect is a real thing, and an observed elected official is naturally going to be a little more thorough, a little more careful, but beware, because if C-SPAN has taught us anything, it's that observed elected officials also tend to make speeches for the camera, so be aware of that. Anyway, it's not all perfect for the city. We have challenges, and I want to share a couple of those with you. You may have noticed that several times today I've talked about making a donation to the Frontier Center, to Funland, to Gift, and so on. In the public sector, funding is always a challenge. We don't want to over-appropriate, over-collect tax dollars. So we typically err on the side of being super careful about what tax dollars we collect. But when I say funding is always a challenge, I'm not talking about this in the way that we all like to complain about not having enough money. Our reality is that the city of Idaho Falls has grown, and yet we receive less tax per capita than we used to. We're challenged by having to figure out how to provide services to more citizens with fewer resources, at the same time that inflation has decided to return to historically normal levels. So why is this? When taxes, property taxes, are the favorite tax to hate in Idaho right now, those taxes seem so high. How can I stand up here and tell you that we're receiving less? In part, this is because state legislation changed the financial landscape, starting with the passage of House Bill 389 in 2021, which, among other things, provided that cities could collect only 90 cents on the dollar, of the value of new construction in the city each year, and only 80% of what an urban renewal project might yield. So suddenly, finding out that the city would be receiving fewer dollars than expected upended many of our plans and our schedules for how we were saving and spending money. And on the taxpayer side, the calculations have been just as chaotic. Historically high post-pandemic property values in Idaho, which have been driven by the old-fashioned, market forces, right? That more people want a house, so the price for the house goes up. That's supply and demand, right? This has been exacerbated. It changed everyone's valuation. We've all seen our property values, our property become more valuable. And this has been exacerbated by a legislative unwillingness in recent years to consistently index Idaho's homeowners exemption. This has resulted in a significant shift of the tax burden from business to residential taxpayers. Some would argue that that's desirable because it's residential taxpayers that use more services than businesses typically do. However, if that was the intention, it was never stated. And prudent governance dictates that shifts like that be achieved gradually to avoid shocking the economy. But it was not done gradually. In the past 2 years, Idaho homeowners have been paying much, much more in property tax, while many businesses have been paying less. Some just a little less, and others much, much less. Is that desirable? That's up to voters and the state officials to decide. But that's part of why it has felt chaotic for property owners. Granted, all tax decisions are going to have unpredictable consequences, and cities have been finding ways to cope. I'm not just complaining today. But bearing in mind that over half of every city property tax dollar collected please bear in mind, it supports public safety. By that I mean police, fire, and EMS. So you can believe me when I say that it has been difficult to keep up with the needs of a growing population. Now, one solution is impact fees. This allows us to address this legislatively induced funding gap. Yet, impact fees have been dreaded, right? The dreaded impact fees. By design, these fees allow us to more directly collect funds to offset the costs associated with growth for police and fire services, parks, and roads. And they accomplish this without burdening existing residents who presumably already paid for that growth when they were a part of it in the form of taxes back in the day. Impact fees typically are passed on to newcomers, right? The purchasers of new real estate development. In other states, they're common. In the Treasure Valley, they're common. Even in Rexburg, they're common. They've been around for decades in Rexburg. But they are relatively new in Idaho Falls, and there are some misconceptions surrounding their purpose and their function. Another difficulty has to do with the timing of when we introduced them. They came at a time when the post-pandemic markets were in crazy flux, and they came at a time when inflation was making a comeback on the American economic scene. Yet we should all understand that when it comes to public finance, fees of all kinds have long been used by government to offset the use of tax dollars. Fees allow those who benefit from a service to pay for the benefit. For example, we could assess more in property taxes and make swimming at the aquatic center free for everyone. Or we could keep taxes flat and charge an entrance fee only for those who want to swim. The city charges fees like that for many types of activities and services. The city's fee resolution, which gets updated and passed annually, is 40, 50 something pages long. We have lots of fees. The conventional wisdom is that a fee is better as a financial tool than a tax when there's a clear nexus between the fee and the benefit received by the fee payer. There's no doubt that there's a nexus between an impact fee and the benefits the future occupants of the newly constructed buildings are going to receive. And so, like all other fees, Idaho Falls impact fees enable us to keep local property taxes low. The current Idaho Falls property tax levy rate of 0.0540 is the lowest it has been since I took office a decade ago. And this rate is almost half, 56% of what it was in 2016, 2017. Our levy rate, the amount of money we take from each dollar, is way less. In fact, I examined levy rate data going back to 1980, and I could not find a year when the levy rate was lower than the one we have right now. We are doing our part to bring that burden down, but we can't control the market. So there's a lot going on, right? The math is complex. But given the data and the financial landscape the legislature has created for Idaho cities, there is not much interest in removing impact fees. However, there is a lot of interest in refining the processes and better defining exactly which aspect of our city's growth those fees are going to pay for. Now, please understand, I am not complaining. I signed up for this job, challenges and all. What I am trying to do is not complain, but explain. It's really important to me that Idaho Falls citizens are highly informed. If you're frustrated or upset by government policy, you have to know that the policy actually, what the policy is, and who is in a position to change it. Sometimes it's the city, sometimes it's the state, sometimes it's a member of Congress. But you want to be able to compliment and complain to the right people. We must know also who to vote for, whom to vote for, and whom to vote against. And so it's important to be highly informed. There are other things I worry about. I worry about sustainable resources. I worry about mental health care and opioid abuse. Time is spent. I can't go into detail. But I will say that I was born to a less educated family, and some of my life experiences have not been gentle ones. And I don't talk about that much because there's really not a need to. But I'll tell you that I have lost more than one family member to the opioid abuse that has overtaken our nation in the past decade. And that Idaho Falls has not been spared, and I worry about that. I worry about that, and I imagine you do too. I worry about our spending priorities, and are they right? We sometimes find ourselves with very little resource, and we have to decide, do we want to spend it on rising insurance premiums? Do we want to spend it on hiring more public safety personnel to make our community safer? Or do we want to repair aging infrastructure and replace a roof or whatever? Every spending decision we make has a consequence. We try, but we can't see around corners. So please know I very sincerely invite you to engage in dialogue about city programs. Tell us what you know, what you see, what you need, what you care most about. And if all everybody does is just say, we need more pickleball courts, that's probably what you'll get. PJ, no, where'd PJ go? He left. Okay, yeah, I have nothing against pickleball courts, but you know, maybe we need something different, and only you can tell us. So finally, I told you that I named the speech "Make a Difference" or "Making a Difference." When I first heard the phrase "Make a Difference" delivered as a directive, it was actually issued as a challenge. Make a difference. And that really inspired me. The person who issued the challenge was a great motivator. And it happened at freshman orientation when I was a new college student. And the phrase so inspired me that it has become a motto in my life, or one of the guiding mottos, right? And I sincerely hope that when it's all said and done, my work, my life, will make a positive difference for my city, my neighbors, my children, your jobs, your businesses, and all future community members. I hope to make a difference, a positive difference. And the jury is still out on that. But I can tell you this. As mayor, I have a front row seat, and I've been able to watch many Idaho Falls citizens make a difference with their time, with their expertise, their donations, and their thoughtful, constructive, and timely comments. If you remember nothing else I say today, please remember that everyone can make a positive difference. So besides encouraging everyone to become more involved in city processes, let me give a shout out for neighborly service. This time of year, consider the elderly neighbor who needs help with snow shoveling. Also consider that your attitude can make a difference. We each can improve the community by adopting positivity and rejecting the popular cynicism that pervades social discourse about government in particular. Our city councilor, Michelle Zildingman, last year, she said in a city meeting that we should assume positive intent of others. Assume positive intent. Think about that. If it would make such a difference if we did that, we'd be nicer to other people. Our conversations would probably be more respectful, and it bears some thought. I close, finally, right, by reminding you of how fortunate we are to live in Idaho Falls, challenges and successes alike. I encourage you to take pride in the fact that our city councilors and directors are dedicated and talented. Our citizens care, and we do expect a lot from ourselves, and we work together, and when we do, we're successful. This creates the synergy that makes Idaho Falls a special place to live. So, as I say every single year, the state of our city is strong. And Idaho Falls, our Idaho Falls future is bright. I could not be more proud to serve and to be a part, of our great community. I feel so lucky. I hope you do too. Thank you for this opportunity. Sorry I went so long.
Thank you, Mayor Casper. I'm just going to point out, I'm glad I'm not the only ball baby in the room. So for those of you, not that I'm calling you a ball baby. That was not my intent, but thank you. And thank you to everyone in this room because you really did make a difference today. Like it says on the Mayor Scholarship Fund website, it takes an entire community to keep the light of success and achievement burning. And without you, we wouldn't have been able to raise $20,000. See, I told you I'd start bawling. It was from her. But I'm so impressed with everyone in this room that we were able to do that and to give scholarships to those kids that are so deserving of them. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Please drive safe, and we hope to see you again next year.